Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome to the Mary Proce Podcast. If you're new here, my name is Mary, and this is a space where the human journey is the spiritual experience. It's where we meet our divinity with our humanity. And today I'm inviting you into a deeply personal, profound, messy, chaotic, yet very life-changing episodes on the lessons that I've learned this past year. I have learned about the power of privacy, the balance of relationship, embracing my humanity, and even opening up to the near future reality of becoming a mom. And so this episode is really for anyone who's seeking clarity, support, growth, and maybe even just like a little inspiration as we navigate this new year together. So let's dive in. Lesson number 1 is prioritizing privacy over expression. I am someone who loves to share everything. I find joy in sharing what I learn, but then I began questioning the sacredness of the beautiful moments in my life, especially when I shared them with everyone. I started asking, what was left for myself to maintain the intimacy of my relationship with life. I got super real with myself, noticing whether parts of me were still seeking some kind of validation. And I started asking, what was I truly gaining in some of these mindless sharing? And was it driven by a need to prove my worth? I started reflecting on the people who don't have social media and how they seem so much happier and carefree and so much more at peace, unburdened by the constant distractions and the flood of garbage information. I realized the importance of preserving my mind, keeping that space clear for creativity and things that truly matter to me, educating myself on meaningful topics, and creating room to compassionately and empathetically and attentively listen to others. So this year, I decided to take a couple social media breaks, both during the fall, and I had always told myself that I had enough self-discipline to not have to deactivate my Instagram, which was my biggest energy drainer. But obviously, joke's on me because the addiction was real. It's like being addicted to sugar. I love food. I love sugar. And between the endless AI content, the negative news, the overwhelming opinions that people were having and sharing, and the division being highlighted online, I felt super drained. My brain could not handle it anymore, and I'm sure you can relate because we live in a world of news, of information, of consumption. At first, I tried a 2-week break, but then I replaced that with binge watching Gilmore Girls, like binge watching Netflix, which was not any better because it was still me distracting myself. Me being uncomfortable with sitting in the unknown, sitting in the discomfort of being bored. So on November 1st, I made a promise to myself that I would deactivate Instagram for not just a week or two, but for a couple of months. And those 2 months were so transformative because initially the first 2 weeks, it felt freeing, but it wasn't really until after the first month that I really felt the profound aha, and I realized just how much energy I had been draining, and more surprisingly, how little I cared for the platform. Of course, I'll still use it. It's a key way that I connect with others, especially my family and my friends, but I no longer rely on it because during my break, I redirected that energy that I would have wasted into creativity and learning and strengthening my own relationships in my life. And it's been a game changer, and I don't think I could ever go back with the relationship that I used to have with it. I found that I don't need the constant noise to feel alive. I've started to immerse myself fully in the present moments and be in awe of their simplicity, even in the mundane. And it's not that I've stopped being productive. There's no way that I will ever be productive because I am just not wired like that. Of course, the responsibilities still exist, but the inspiration and the creativity and love that have flowed through me throughout those 2 months have been nothing short of enlightening. And that is the energy I want to keep cultivating. And this lesson extended beyond social media, of course. It also touched how I approach in-person interactions. I began practicing kindness and generosity behind closed doors without needing anyone to know about it. because otherwise the ego hijacks the acts of love. Over time, I reminded myself that when I act from a place of love or kindness, that it's not about recognition. Instead, it becomes a priceless feeling, a divine connection, like a wink from God that only Him and I know. And it reassures me that abundance is all around me, that I will never run out. It's a reminder that I'm always on the right path because love is always the right path. So my biggest takeaway here is protect your mental space and cherish privacy because not everything beautiful needs an audience. Lesson 2 is needing more space in relationships. This year, I realized how vital it is to create space in relationships, especially romantic partnerships. I've noticed cycles where I dive deeply into relationships. And hands up if you're an all or nothing girl, because while it is an amazing thing to be, it can also be very destructive because it can lead to me, or if you're like this, to losing yourself in relationships. And this isn't anyone's fault, the least my husband's, because he is able to provide me a safe space to actually be able to express my complex emotions. But I realized that I needed to take accountability of how much of myself I give to others. Journaling became my anchor, and while I didn't journal for like the longest time, which is 2 years, I started dumping all of my thoughts into paper the moment that I woke up. No matter how dark, no matter how fucked up, no matter how intrusive or sad or mopey, it allowed me to process my emotions in a healthy manner without me having to project it out to other people. I started to laugh at my ego and I started reconnecting back to my truth. And this isn't a one and done only. You reconnect back to your truth every single day because the ego distracts you all of the time. You can't just stop your mind from producing thoughts. It's not gonna happen. But this was a good reminder for me that life isn't so serious. That when did I forget to laugh? That we can hold space for all the raw and real emotions that we experience, but can also step back and laugh at the absurdity of it all. I've also leaned into my yoga practices. I never miss a day on my mat. I let my body move in the way that it wants to express. This could be yearning, longing, frustration, sadness, or grief. Whatever needs to come through, I allow my body to express that. Sometimes I simply lay in stillness because sometimes that's all we need. We need a good long 20 to 30 minute shavasana, letting the emotions rise and eventually self-regulating. And it's been healing for my body to release everything that is no longer in alignment with who I am and who I'm becoming. This year, my husband and I, his name is Joe, had so many beautiful moments of intimacy, connection, growth, and love. And our communication really deepened. We found more fun in our interdependence. There were countless moments I documented of us live, laugh, loving together, and I was tempted to share it, but instead, I kept it to myself. Now, Joe isn't someone who shares everything, and while he does share some parts of our relationship, not nearly as much as I do. And I used to wonder why, because openness comes so easy and naturally to me, but now I understand. And keeping certain moments of sacredness makes them even more meaningful. They become something that only we share, a private connection that no one else is a part of. And this realization is tied to when I came off of social media. It made me appreciate the beauty of creating space, not only in my relationship with Joe, but also in how I engage with the world. And this wasn't always easy. I used to think that being in love meant always being together. But I've learned that creating space for myself allows me to bring more love into the relationship because it's not about needing less of Joe, it's about needing more of me. And my biggest takeaway here is that space isn't about distance, it's about embodiment. It's about honoring my needs so that I can bring my best self to my relationships. Lesson number 3 is being less rigid on spirituality. For a long time now, I love diving deep into the different modalities in spirituality, immersing myself in books, in podcasts, in videos, in programs, in certifications, in coaches, in teachers, all about enlightenment. But over time, I realized that the most profound practice wasn't in these resources. It was in my relationship with life as a human. Living, loving, and navigating the ups and downs of daily life became the ultimate integration practice. And this shift came when I started to feel disconnected from the word spiritual. It's been so overused and it made it feel heavy and overly serious, almost detached from the beauty of everyday life. And I began to ask myself, like, how can I bring spirituality into the simplicity of being human? And that phrase that we hear all the time, live, laugh, love, became my mantra, reminding me that the human experience is inherently spiritual. That when we keep things simple, lighthearted, and heart-centered, we can focus less on the rigid definitions and more on practicing humility and applying what we've learned in real, meaningful ways. Life is constantly presenting opportunities to choose love, whether it's in a partnership or work or with family. And these everyday interactions is where spirituality truly comes alive. When we direct our minds toward loving thoughts instead of fear, judgment, guilt, or anger, we strengthen love as our natural default response. I started to ask myself, how does being human teach us spirituality? And the answer was simple. By embracing our emotions, our imperfections, and our connections, we become more attuned to the divine essence that is inherently us. And spirituality isn't about escaping or perfecting the human experience. It's about leaning into it fully. Every moment offers a chance to practice love, forgiveness, and compassion. And compassion being one of the examples that have been my greatest teachers throughout my whole life. I remember a time when someone would trigger or activate me so deeply, and I found myself pausing to ask, like, what could they be going through that I can't see? Instead of reacting with anger, I put myself in their shoes, and I choose to see them as a reflection of me, a part of the same divine oneness. And this shift freed me from the illusion that they were bad or separate from me. We're all just trying our best living this life, and we're not going to be perfect. We're going to mess up. You're going to be unkind one day, and then you're going to realize that was stupid. Of course, all I want is love and oneness. By giving myself the space to process my emotions first in a healthy manner and then coming back to the situation so that we can offer helpful solutions, this is what it's all about. It's approaching the situation with as much clarity and love and empathy as much as possible. I've also learned that forgiveness is a key practice in my life. Each night, I remind myself not to leave anyone out of my heart. I give it all to God, or however you name that presence for yourself. I ask love to purify my mind and allow forgiveness to set me free. And these moments, though very simple, has taught me more about spirituality than any book or podcast. They showed me that being human with all its messiness and beauty is where the real spiritual work happens. And so my biggest takeaway here is that spirituality is about living with love and humility. So embrace your humanity because it's part of the journey. Lesson number 4 is that we need practical tools to help us stay inspired and maintain emotional equilibrium. For me, uncovering what truly inspires me starts with getting quiet. I've learned that inspiration emerges from moments of stillness, a walk outside, or soaking in the sunlight, or simply breathing in fresh air, or sitting down on my butt and meditating for 10-15 minutes. But nature always has a way of sparking something within me, as do deep conversations with others, because these moments of alignment can activate creative energy and clarity. Nature always has a way of sparking something within me, as do deep conversations that I have with others. These moments of alignment can activate creative energy and clarity. When I ask myself, why am I doing this? Is it out of fear and pressure, or is it out of joy and love? This helps me distinguish true inspiration from external pressure. Fear often shows up as tension or frustration or force in my body, which is my cue to pause and realign, to take stock. And to shift away from that, obviously my yoga practice is my go-to, which clears the stagnant energy in my body. You can also shake. People like to run. People like to work out. People like to sing and dance. Whatever is your way of clearing the negative or stagnant energy out of your body, please continue to do that, because you need to create space in order for new information to come through and new inspiration to express through you. I love chanting because it helps me clear out my throat chakra, especially when I start to feel a lump down there, when I feel like I have held my voice or I'm not speaking up. That's usually a cue to express it, to release and soften the energy blockages that have inhibited me from speaking my truth. When I feel flustered, I know that that's my cue to touch some grass or walk bare feet on grass. And if it's winter time, just a simple walk in the park, or if there's not snow on the ground, then I lay on the ground or I hug a tree. And I used to make fun of the people who used to hug trees, but now I've become one of them because it works. I step into nature and allow the stillness of the earth to guide me back into balance. And we've all heard this before, one form or another, but above all, I learned how to let go and let God. I ask for divine guidance and trust that the clarity will come. Maybe not now, maybe not in the way that I want it to, but I trust that it's a seed that's going to produce a flower. It's a seed that's going to produce a tree, not through force, but through surrender. I found that certain tools, particularly yin yoga, has been transformative. Holding on to the poses for longer periods of time, at least 3 minutes, helps me release the tension in my body and in my fascia, my connective tissues, and brings my nervous system back into equilibrium. It's incredible how physical tension can mirror back stuck emotions that we've suppressed, and softening my heart through movement often brings me an emotional release. My mind is constantly running, and so I recognize when stillness is needed. We need those moments to simply breathe and be. And mastering this has also meant not running away or avoiding challenges, because I used to have an avoidant attachment style. If you're like me, you know that we love to run away, but our problems will come and follow us no matter where we are. But truly staying present and fixing my awareness on love and remaining a peaceful witness to life's ups and downs has truly been a game changer. And if you're unsure about where to begin in finding balance, I recommend starting with education and experimentation. I invest time in books, in podcasts, in trainings that align with my personal growth journey. And yoga teacher training is something that I encourage everybody to do. Whether you want to teach yoga or simply just deepen your personal practice, I feel like it's an incredible foundation for tuning into your body and connecting with the bigger picture of life. Continuous self-reflection or introspection is also crucial on this journey. For example, I've noticed that my default energy when I'm alone is hyperactivity. And so I intentionally choose restorative yoga to counterbalance that. This process of listening to your body's intelligence takes time, but it is possible and it is worth it. And practices like breath work is a really great way to start. So ultimately, finding balance means cultivating the opposite of what your mind often craves, and instead giving your body and your spirit what they truly need. By listening, reflecting, and experimenting, you'll start to cultivate the tools that bring you back into alignment. So the takeaway here is find your tools for balance and prioritize them. Inspiration comes when we make space for it. Lesson 5 is leaving comfort for growth. Nice and easy, pretty self-explanatory, but stepping outside of my comfort zone has been such a powerful teacher, both in my relationships with Joe and within myself, because I realized that when I challenge myself, I grow independently, and those new qualities naturally flow into my relationships and other aspects of my life. And it's not about just facing the discomfort, right? It's about welcoming it as an opportunity to integrate the spiritual lessons that I've learned into real life practice. And these moments of growth help me show up more authentically, both for myself and for the people that I love. When I encounter fear or resistance, I always ask myself the hard question, well, what if I don't do the hard thing? And the answer is always the same. I'll stay the same. And that's a sobering truth, because feeling stagnant is probably the worst feeling ever for me. And it's not what we're meant for. Life is always moving. We are ever evolving, and we are designed to change and adapt. And so I remind myself often that it's okay to be afraid, but you gotta do it anyway. Facing your fears does not have to feel overwhelming. But if you feel overwhelmed, allow yourself to feel that way. What I do, because you don't have to carry the weight on your shoulders, is I offer my fears to God. I go into prayer and I focus on practical steps to stay grounded and motivated. Eliminating distractions is key, especially those that trigger comparison or perpetuate self-doubt or imposter syndrome. And shifting my focus to personal growth and service rather than seeking validation or recognition keeps me aligned. And through it all, I try to have fun and not take myself too seriously because no one is as invested in our perceived failures as we are. If you feel stuck in your life, start with radical honesty. Ask yourself, why am I stuck? Who am I trying to impress? What would it cost me to stay here? And imagine your life in 50 years from now. If you've never taken the leap, would you feel fulfilled and satisfied, or would you feel regretful? And these tough conversations with yourself, whether out loud, with a therapist, in a journal, can help you uncover what's truly holding you back. Because we know that the truth is, stepping into the discomfort is where we grow. It's where we learn. It's where we find deeper meaning in life. And even when it feels hard, the rewards of courage far outweighs the temporary safety of staying in place. So the takeaway here is that growth happens in the discomfort. Be afraid and do it anyway. So that was kind of a long overview for the first 5 lessons. And I wanted to go into the last half on another video. So if you don't want to miss that, and I highly recommend and encourage you to watch the second half of this episode, please subscribe to my channel, share this with a family or friend who might need to hear it. And thank you so much for making it to the end. I hope this served you, and I cannot wait to share more. Sending you oceans of blessings. Namaste.